It's not that far. Okay, so what about downtown LA? You know, sometimes you're in cities where the culture has moved on, but the design of the open spaces has not been able to be in step with that cultural evolution. And let's look at what happens in LA streets already today. It's not unusual. You know, in the beginning when we started talking about the project and we were sitting with the design team and discussing whether it's possible to calm some streets sometimes or to do pilot projects, there was a lot of caution. But you know, for me one thing that jumped out, on the way to those meetings, you sometimes walk past scenes like that, where it's quite okay to close a street for a day to do a film shoot. We have a department in the city that I believe kind of administers things like that. So you know, we can actually, it's already happening, and we can do it. Next space, Ciclavia, the badge is here, Joe. The Ciclavia, an event, that's a great thing. That's not really the image on everybody's mind when you think about LA, but the culture in the city is moving on, and the right-of-way design needs to catch up with that culture. Next, please. Something we don't know in Copenhagen are taco trucks. So this is a scene not too far from the Ralph's supermarket store where, yeah, unfortunately, taco trucks are quite hard to follow and design benches for. So, so the people have to make do with the curb. Okay. And you have other things, tailgating, also a phenomenon not known on the other side of the big water. So there's car parking lots at Exposition Park that are already being appropriated for other uses than car parking. And it's not actually only on days when the Trojans are playing, it's actually happening every day. We've been many times at Exposition Park now, every day, including yesterday. There's people that go walking to get exercise, that go running. People appropriate these spaces for other uses. Next, please. And that is to say that this design process and what you see on the wall there is not a vision that was designed in a room and then is presented to you. This is the outcome of a process that involved a detailed survey. We've had 40 people on the street measuring where people are walking and what people are doing. And of course we can't look at the entire geographic area, but we've picked areas from Exposition Park to USC, to the Trade Tech Campus, to Nokia Plaza, and Grand Ho Park. And what we found out was, well, the life in the Figueroa corridor is radically different from place to place. There's many communities with many different needs, and there's areas where there's very little activity, and there's areas where there's lots of activity. I want to point out some of them. One of the most interesting findings for me was that at Exposition Park, off MLK, there's areas where the local community meets, where we actually have very high levels of activity. There's car parks that have more urban life on them than some of the spaces that you find in downtown that were designed as public spaces. Next, please. Okay, all is to say, if we want to create an iconic Figueroa street, a street that really is, you know, the king of the streets in this part of town, then I think the first thing that needs to be clear is that it only works if it operates well at a local level. If the street cannot facilitate basic functions like serving the local community and being a good place of exchange for them, then you will not get better. In the downtown hierarchy of streets, it needs to be high on the hierarchy. And in our view, this project is not about one individual, is a single place in the Figueroa corridor. This is about creating multiple destinations for people that are found along the corridor and are always well connected by several ways of getting back and forth. Next, please. We're now at a stage where we have several options. We have gauged what our preference is in the design team. We have tested that in terms of traffic. We're in the process of getting cost feedback. And there's all sorts of things to consider. And amongst that, we want to hear from you whether you think that these options are what your interests are. Okay, so the first one. This is a situation of what you could call a general condition on Figueroa Street. So this is at 18th Street. This is not one of the areas where there was a lot of urban activity in our survey. This is one of the areas where there was less. And the typical condition, even here, we're saying that all along Figueroa there will be some level of intervention. So all along Figueroa there will be sidewalk improvements, there will be new street trees, and even in the base condition we are proposing that there's a new separated bicycle path that has a width of 4.5 feet and is further protected by a 1.5 feet bicycle curb or protection. You can see here the yellow segment, and this area that the people are standing on is a bus stop. So bus stops are also upgraded and integrated. Next please. This is the better option. So here the specification is slightly different. You can see that all of a sudden we have made the bus stop more comfortable, and all of a sudden we're integrating more green street components in the right of way as well. The best option, well, self-explanatory, it really creates the best microclimatic conditions. We're even integrating more street trees in the right of way, more green street components, and bus stops are upgraded as well. This, what I've just showed you, this is a basic level of intervention that we propose is found all along Figueroa in the good, better, or best configuration. There is some areas on Figueroa that we found have higher levels of urban intensity. We found that there are times at Staples and LA Live when you have, in 1 hour, 5,000 people walking the same pavement, but an hour later is only traveled by 50 people. There are times you wish, but what we're saying is that in the future we want Figueroa to be lined by proper buildings that address the back of the sidewalk, that have active uses in the ground floor. The sidewalks are kept in their dimension but are upgraded, have new street trees, green street components. Then, as in the previous section that you've seen, a separated bike path on which you can travel and you're safe, because you're not bumping into pedestrians on the sidewalk, and B, you're not being bumped into by cars on the carriageway. Next please. The better option turns it up a little bit more. So on the better option you can see we're starting to get progressively further into the carriageway. What we're saying here is that all of a sudden we improve the sidewalks and we integrate what we call a flex lane. And a flex lane in our view is a lane in which it's a continuation of the continuous bicycle path, but it's also a place where you can walk, and it's also a place where you can have limited vehicular traffic to service buildings, etc. But it's not a through route that you drive up and down Figueroa. That stuff happens on this side of the road. The best option takes it one step further. So we still have our sidewalk improvements, we have the flex lane, but here we integrate also what we call a multi-purpose median. And because you're that far away from the sources of noise and fumes, you actually can start having outdoor seating at the ground floor areas. And altogether, I think this is also interesting because we do in this location have high levels of footfall at times. And this can create a situation that works as a pleasant park-like environment on an everyday situation. But in the hours where you have 5,000 people marching up and down Figueroa, you can accommodate those people in a safe way. Next, please. And our view is that we want to have the best specification in the areas where we have the highest urban intensity, where we know that there are people actually to use it. But we invite a discussion about that, and we'd like to hear your opinion. Bill Robertson Lane, I don't know if everybody knows Bill Robertson Lane, it used to be called Menlo. It's the street that runs past the front of Exposition Center. That's an interest. As soon as the Expo line opens down here, a lot more people will start using Bill Robertson Lane as a place to walk and to access the metro line. Already today, this is a rat run. When Vermont is clogged up, people start driving over here. And there is an accident hotspot in the sense that there is activity where families and kids are using Exposition Park, are trying to cross this road, and cars drive down with high speed. And you can see it here. And that's Bill Robertson Lane today. Next, please. We're suggesting that the central section of Bill Robertson Lane is still accessible to facilitate the servicing of the Colosseum and the other destinations. But there's effectively two plugs to through traffic. One is at the southern end and one is at the northern end. The collage was of the southern one. In the north, we think that Jesse A. Brewer Jr. Park can actually extend all the way over to the Natural History Museum. When you walk out of LA Live or the Chick Hand Court, this is the view you get. So once you come out of an event, this is what you would see. You would walk onto the head of 11th Street and basically see a lot of road and car parking. We think this 11th Street is an incredible opportunity. 11th Street is one of your streets that's not 120 feet wide. 11th Street is 57 feet wide. So this is actually a street where you can create some sense of urban intensity. We're suggesting that in the future 11th Street will be a pedestrian priority environment, that you can still drive through it, but you will drive through it on the premise of the pedestrians. So we're experimenting with three options, with reducing traffic to one lane in one way. That's the good option. And the best option is even playing with ideas like making the carriageway the same level as the sidewalk, so that the traffic lane would be delineated by planting and urban furniture.